Hey, do you like to read? Of course you don't. It's 2022. Nobody likes to read. But if you do like to read, I have a couple suggestions for you. First, we have Rise of the Deadman, the first chapter in the Winterlon series, written by yours truly, Chancey Ploffman. And you've got the second book, Battle of the Benshidi, the second in the series, also written by yours truly, Chancey Ploffman. Where can you find these books? You can find them on Amazon.com. You can get the paperback version or the e-version. Now, I know, it's a tough sell, right? Nobody likes to read in 2022. But what if I told you can hear it from the 2021 NFCA National Pitcher of the Year, the 2021 SEC Tournament MVP, and three-time Kentucky Gatorade Player of the Year, Montana Fouts.
I hope that you had the best birthday and your book ad. I'm so excited to read them. So congratulations on everything. Roll Tide.
So once again, that's Rise of the Deadman and Battle of the Benshidi, both available now. Check them out.
All right, everybody, we've just got a couple days left of No Shave November, so this should be trimmed next time you see me. But anyways, it's kind of late here on a Monday, but I decided to go in and talk really quick about the Independent Spirit Award nominations, their announcement, give some quick updated opinions on Golden Globes as far as early predictions on that. And really, at this point, they're not really so much early predictions anymore, are they? We've got less than 2 weeks now before the nominations come out for the Globes. So time was going to be short this week, where I went home for Thanksgiving, and none of the area theaters there were showing Glass Onion, so I couldn't see it there. And I do want to see it in theater. So I have to go tomorrow because then it's done. Then you can't see it again until it's out on Netflix, unless you're lucky and get a screening of it somewhere else. But I'm probably not going to be that lucky. So, yeah. So I'm planning on doing that tomorrow. And the rest of this week is sketchy time-wise. So I was like, I might not get a video in until we're like literally less than a week away from the Globes coming out. So I'm like, oof, let me go ahead and get that in really quick before we get too far into everything there and all that. So, yeah, so really quick, I'll go ahead and we'll start with the Indie Spirit Awards. We'll kind of cover the categories and then briefly discuss some possible winners in the categories at the end of that discussion before we move on to the Globes. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump in here. Best Feature, the 5 nominees are Bones and All, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Our Father the Devil, Tar, and Women Talking. Indie Spirits, traditionally speaking here, of course, we know films like Top Gun Maverick and Babylon and the Fabelmans, those big studio numbers, of course, they're not going to be here. But generally speaking, they've had a pretty good track record of getting at least 1 or 2 of the Best Picture nominees in there. Now, last year was kind of a fluke because none of their 5 feature nominees were made it at the Oscars. The year after that, 2 out of the 5, or the year before that, I should say, Nomadland and Minari made it. At this point on the list, Bones and All is a real outside contender at this point. I mean, it's really, having not seen it yet, just on its face, it really looks like a film that is going to be a really niche thing for the Academy, unlike even something like Call Me By Your Name from the same director. Everything Everywhere All at Once seems to have the momentum at this point. Tar, it looks pretty good. Women Talking looks pretty good for its chances at Best Picture nominations and stuff. So I think they'll have a better track record this year than previous years. In this category, at least, is predicting, possibly one of those 3 films winning, will be possibly the Best Picture winner. We'll have to see. For your 5 nominated directors, you have Todd Field for Tar, Kogonada for After Yang, the Daniels for Everything Everywhere All at Once, Sarah Polley for Women Talking, and Helena Rajin for Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Then Indie Spirits decided to go gender neutral for their acting categories this year. So they have 10 nominees for Best Lead Performance and 10 nominees for Best Supporting Performance. And we'll start with the leads here. You have Cate Blanchett for Tar, Dale Dickey for A Love Song, Mia Goth for Pearl, Regina Hall for Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul, Paul Mescal for After Sun, Aubrey Plaza for Emily the Criminal, Jeremy Pope for The Inspection, Andrea Riseborough for From to Leslie, Taylor Russell for Bones and All, and Michelle Yeoh for Everything Everywhere All at Once. On the supporting side, you have Jamie Lee Curtis for Everything Everywhere All at Once, Brian Tyree Henry for Causeway, Nina Haas for Tar, Brian Darcy James for The Cathedral, Ki Hu Kwan for Everything Everywhere All at Once, Trevante Rhodes for Bruiser, Theo Rossi for Emily the Criminal, Mark Rylance for Bones and All, Jonathan Tucker for Palm Trees and Power Lines, and Gabrielle Union for The Inspection. Next up, let's do the screenplay category. 5 nominated screenplays are Catherine Called Birdie, Tar, After Yang, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Women Talking. Then for Best First Feature, we have After Sun, Emily the Criminal, The Inspection, Murina, and Palm Trees and Power Lines. Best First Screenplay nominees are Fire Island, Palm Trees and Power Lines, Emergency, Bodies, 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 and Emily the Criminal. Doc Feature, we have All That Breathes, All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, A House Made of Splinters, Midwives, and Riotsville, USA. International Feature, you have Corsage, Joyland, Lenore Will Never Die, Return to Seoul, and Saint Omer. Then we do have a couple tech categories in here with cinematography. The 5 cinematography achievements nominated were for After Sun, Murina, Neptune, Frost, Pearl, and Tar. And the 5 films chosen to have the best editing by the Indie Spirits were After Sun, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, if I can get the whole title out there, Tar, and The Cathedral. So, generally speaking, Everything Everywhere All at Once landed in 8 nominations, 2 in the supporting performance category. It's obviously in for director, feature, and screenplay, and the editing category. And then it did have breakthrough performance, which I don't think I named. But yeah, let's go ahead and name those off here. I think I skipped that one. Let's see. Those 5 breakthrough performances were Frankie Corio for After Sun, Garcia Filipovic for Murina, Stephanie Sue for Everything Everywhere All at Once, Lily McGierney for Palm Trees and Power Lines, and Daniel Zagrati for Funny Pages. Yeah, I always dread that category because you always get those names that are very hard to pronounce or that I've just not heard pronounced, so it's like I'm taking a stab at them. Tar, I think, though, did pretty well here with its 7 nominations. You got 2 performances nominated. The director got in. It got in for screenplay. And both of the tech categories, which even Everything Everywhere All at Once couldn't get both. It only had to settle for editing of the 2 tech categories there. Let's see. Otherwise, Women Talking, I think that one not getting anything with the acting categories. Kind of okay. That's kind of the flip of what I thought when we talked last time about SAG. That's kind of the flip of what I thought would happen. The inverse, because my thinking on that one is it misses ensemble but gets at least one performer from supporting actor and supporting actress in there. But it could be the opposite. It could get ensemble and nothing else. It could be. Maybe there's enough infighting with the voters at SAG between, say, Claire Foy and Rooney Mara and Jessie Buckley and maybe even Frances McDormand or whatever. Just enough performers. It's like, they can't really settle on one nominee. That could happen. And supporting actor, I mean, Ben Whishaw is pretty popular. He has been pretty popular with a lot of TV nominations over the years here. So, especially with the SAG voting body being so friendly with a lot of their crossover and voters and stuff. Generally speaking, Whishaw, I think, is a pretty safe bet to still get in. So I don't know if that's a weird one where it's like it's called Women Talking, and yet its only individual nomination is for Ben Whishaw. Boy, I don't know. I don't know if that's... obviously, it would make, I'm sure, a couple think pieces, but but generally speaking, that'd be an odd result. Anyways, so I guess we can address the elephant in the room here, and that's I don't know if this was something that had been announced in advance and I just missed it, or if this was something they just sprang on us the morning of the nominations. But going gender neutral, okay, and I get that in a lot of places in the country right now it's really cool to be favored to this, but it's you can't say it doesn't have its drawbacks. Chief among them, I think, personally, is it really fair to say that there's only 2 lead performances this year from males that were worth a damn? even in this limited bracket as far as, independent films. Is that really the case? There's only 2 guys that did a fucking good job all fucking year. It's like, I don't know. In the same way you have BAFTA right now with their director category, where no matter what, you're going to get 3 female directors and 3 male directors. That has real fucking consequences. Like, Denis Villeneuve all of a sudden did not direct Dune. Dune directed itself, and he doesn't show up on the Oscar list. He missed BAFTA, but he got in everywhere else. So it's like, don't tell me that didn't have at least a small impact on the Oscar voters. And in the same way, it's like, okay, obviously a big drawback I think that Indie Spirit has to just accept at this point is, and I know, I kind of, before I started here, I did look at some of the recent years here, but it's like, beforehand when you have 4 acting categories, that's 4 chances to try and predict the Oscars, or predict who's going to miss at the Oscars if somebody else is favored, the way they did a couple years ago with Riz Ahmed winning here over Chadwick Boseman. Just as we ended up seeing at the Oscars, where Anthony Hopkins won over Chadwick Boseman, even though Chadwick was favored arguably at both ceremonies. And everything there. And you get, and at the same time though, you get the credit of predicting Yu Jung winning for Minari, and she ends up winning at the Oscars. Even though, by the end it felt like, it was going to be a little tough for her to lose that race. Still, at the same time, it's like, hey, you get to do that. And even though they did go Carey Mulligan over Frances McDormand in Best Actress, the wind was kind of shifty that year. We were really not 100% sure yet, at that point, of who was going to win Best Actress. There was a few possibilities, And even if we go back a year before that, even though they didn't have anybody in Best Actor that followed through at the Oscars, nobody in Best Supporting Actor, and I think not even one in Supporting Actress. Best Actress they nailed with Renee Zellweger. She was eligible because Judy qualified here for Indie Spirits. And I know last year was not the best year ever for Indie Spirits as far as predicting stuff. They got Troy Kotzer right, but really Jesse Buckley, and I think only those two out of 20 nominees made it on the Oscar list in their respective categories. Troy was one of them, and he actually ended up winning, so they get credit last year for predicting him to win. Even though I know that's the track record and everything, recently they haven't been as hot as far as predicting winners. Now your chances of predicting the Oscars and lining up with it and taking some of the credit and saying, they won here first, that gets cut in half now. That gets cut in half when you go gender neutral. And everything. And so I think if you're Indie Spirits, or if you're Gotham, or if you're any other list this year, or potentially in the future that wants to do that, just know that until the Oscars does that change, which I don't know. I don't know if we're to that point yet or not, but doesn't seem like I've heard way too much down the line that says that change is coming imminently. That's the way it is. And, just the way these award ceremonies go anymore, and really have been since the start, they look good when they line up with that big statue at the end. Because, as far as I'm concerned, that's not going to change. The Oscar is still going to be the end award that everybody cares about, that the mass public knows about and cares about, that the actors, the directors, everybody in their lists, it's at the end of the season for a reason. It was there, I get it, it was there first and stuff, and so that's maybe part of the reason why. But at the same time, it's like, visit 100 people in a grocery store and ask them what an Oscar is. I'll bet 98 or 99 of them are going to know exactly what an Oscar is. They're going to know what it looks like. They're going to know that it's a big deal in the awards community. Ask them what an Indie Spirit Award is. Ask those same 100 people. How many of them are going to jump to and know exactly what the award looks like? Do I know what the award looks like? I have to remind myself sometimes what it looks like. So not to say that, they're going to be completely irrelevant by making this change. No. But just know that it does leave an impact there. And again, it kind of can leave some blood in the mouth of some people, where it's like, is it really fair to nominate 8 female performers and only nominate 2 male performers? I get you're going gender neutral, so you're viewing, there's no difference between the two, but That's, from traditionally speaking, when we get to the 4 acting categories, they do split them 2 female, 2 male at the Oscars. So I don't know. So it is what it is. Indie Spirit did what they did, so I can't change it, and all that. And I really, personally, I don't know. It's like, on some degree, I'm like, yeah, I get it. You want to be with the times. You want to open it up so that, hey, in certain years, it's true. There may be some years where there are 5 or 6 or maybe even 7 performers who are one gender, male or female, that are really good and should be looked at and should be, on the list because they're that damn good. I understand that that perspective and everything, for sure. And at the same time, you've got the inverse of that. You do have years where it's like, okay, well, is it fair to knock off XXX and so on and so forth? And so it is what it is. Again, I can't change it. And, again, to a large degree, I haven't really made up 100% my mind on it. I don't 100% cheerlead this, but at the same time, I'm not condemning this. I'm not saying that it's 100% wrong. I'm not saying that it's, the worst thing to ever happen on the award circuit. I'm not going to go overboard and do anything like that. But yeah, it has its drawbacks as well as its benefits. And I think we'll see what the reaction is. I know right off the bat, we've had some people from the LGBTQ community come out and say, hey, this is awesome. And we haven't seen a lot of drawback. And again, right now in certain circles, if you give any drawback, you get bludgeoned. And I might end up getting bludgeoned myself here tonight. We'll see. But just for saying anything ever so slightly negative about it. But still, that's, whatever. I'm not afraid to get some pie on my face. But yeah, it is what it is. So yeah, so that's what that is and everything. And you could argue, I think for the Gotham Awards, they've done it, 3 years in a row now, I think they've gone gender neutral with theirs. And really at this point, and I know they weren't like a gigantic ceremony to begin with, but I can't say that it's really drawn in a lot of viewership. It's not like the Gotham Awards 3 years ago were not televised, and now this year, in the last couple of years, they've been televised. It hasn't really moved the needle for them. Indie Spirit is kind of a different animal, though. Indie Spirit, they've been around a while. For years, I don't think... last year, I think they did change it, and maybe the year before they changed it, too. But for a long, long time, they had that tradition where they handed out their awards the night before the Oscars. They were very, very kind of rebel in that way and very adamant in what they were doing. But... I'm not sure if that's their plan again this year. It looks like the date does come pretty close to when the Oscars are, from what I remember. So, yeah. So actually, voting ends for Oscars on March 7th, it says here. And the date of the ceremony is March 4th. So it could have some impact on voters. But yeah, that being said, again, I might have just completely blown it this year and just not even read a couple of the headlines when they came out that said that they were going gender neutral this year. So when they happened, I was like, oh, I didn't know they were doing that. And yeah, that's the result. One quick thing, though, while we're on the topic there, you might have noticed there's one film, generally speaking, that would have done okay here at Indie Spirits. Maybe wouldn't have done perfectly, wouldn't have gotten 6, 7, 8 nominations, but The Whale. There's a whale-shaped hole in these nominees, some people have said. And a lot of people immediately jump to that, like, oh, The Whale's in trouble. And I'm like, okay, hold on a minute. Well, first of all, generally speaking, from what I know about the film, it does seem like it was eligible to qualify here. It doesn't seem like its budget was going to be higher than the, 20 million threshold? I believe it's 20 million. Last I checked, it was 20 million. Let's see here. Oh, 22.5. They upped it. That's right. They upped it. Let's see. Hold on a minute. Oh, no, they upped it again. 30 million. That's right. Okay, sorry. Because it was recapping in previous years. That's what it was. So 30 million or less is the budget for these films and everything for Indie Spirits. And I forget, too, because Banshees is not anywhere to be seen on here either, even in the international film category. And if I saw correctly, some of the films that are up in like feature and director are not films that were produced here in the U.S. either. So it's not, it doesn't always depend on which country you're originating from production-wise. That determines your eligibility. So yeah, we have seen a couple. I saw a couple think pieces that said, "Oh, The Whale's in big trouble. It's going to miss picture. Brendan Fraser's now a threat to lose Best Actor and everything." I'm like, okay, hold your horses. I haven't heard the budget figures on The Whale. I would be shocked if it was more than 30. But look at this. I mean, Banshees. Why isn't Banshees on the list? Nobody's complaining about Banshees not being anywhere on here. I'm sure there's one or two other films. Bros was a film, especially if you're going gender neutral, not say, because that could, factor into LGBTQ plus stuff. Bros is nowhere on here. And I get it was from a major distributor, so maybe that did disqualify it, but that was under 30 million, and nobody argued, even if it was under 30 million, that it should be on there. I'm trying to think, isn't there one or two other ones I'm missing here? Yeah, I think definitely Banshees was the other one as well. Even though, yeah, again, it could be the thing, but it's like, well, hey, Searchlight has stuff on here, I'm pretty sure. So that one didn't have to do with the studio that was releasing it or anything. Living, I'm pretty sure Living qualifies, and that was nowhere on the list. It didn't make Bill Nighy didn't get into the lead category, so, I don't hear anybody saying now Bill Nighy's not going to make it in for Best Actor, so I don't know. Yeah, and I get it. The Whale is a little more high prospect as far as its Best Picture contention and stuff right now, possibly getting into some other categories like Screenplay, Supporting Actress. I still see a couple rumblings that they think Aronofsky could get in for Best Actor, or as a Director, I'm sorry. But I don't know. Personally, I feel like that ship is really getting ready to sail, and he's not even near the harbor yet, if that analogy makes sense. Anyhow, yeah. So I think with that, otherwise, I was going to make one other point here while we're talking about money and stuff. A couple people I know are already a little worried now because the Fabelmans has now opened here in the U.S. It's now not quite in wide distribution, but it's in over 600 theaters, and it's barely cracking like $3 million at the domestic box office. It is really did not jumpstart the kind of a more, again, adult-friendly fare at the box office like some had thought it would. And I haven't seen any yet, but I'm sure there's going to be some people out there that are now going to say, oh, look at that, it's in trouble. It's in trouble at the Oscars. That leaves room for somebody else to take over. That could be true. But real quick, remind me how much money Coda made last year? Yeah, that's what I thought. It was a streaming film, obviously. But, a film like that, if it had opened in theaters, if it had been, say, from A24 or Neon or Fox Searchlight or something, or Searchlight Pictures as they're now called, do you think it really would have made more than, say, Belfast or more than King Richard? Would it have made more than... Can't even remember even any other nominees last year, sorry. Would it have really made that big of a dent at the box office? And my answer is no. Nomadland, that opened in a few theaters, barely, I don't know if it even cracked $1 million in total at the domestic box office. And again, I get it, it did end up because of COVID and everything, it was more widely accessible on Hulu than it was in a lot of theater chains. But did that hurt Nomadland? No. I think generally speaking, at this point in the race, where normally a few years ago, films like that opening to very limited box office or just not taking off box office-wise, it would hurt them. A lot of people, I remember Moonlight, the year of Moonlight, a lot of them just completely disregarded the film having any chance of overtaking La La Land because it just didn't make money. And that was a big thing. But I don't know, it's like the further we get away from films like The Towering Inferno and Titanic and Lord of the Rings Return of the King and Ben-Hur and some of these films that are high on the list as far as box office takes and stuff, even Avatar here just a little over a decade ago, the further away we get from those days, the less the money seems to matter to the voters as far as what ends up winning, as far as what ends up being the consensus film. So for those of you that want to jump ship on The Fabelmans now just because it's struggling at the box office, well, guess what? Banshees of Inisherin also struggled. Tar also struggled. The Whale, I'm sure, will have its struggles. She Said is really struggling right now because that one I think did have some kind of modest expectations. Maybe could crack $10 to $15 million here in its total haul, but it doesn't look like it's going to come close to that unless it has some really long legs. So again, it's what we said for over a year now. It's the films that are aiming for that the quadrants of not children, but young adult, middle-aged, or general adults, and then seniors. They haven't really found too many films that hit all three of those demographics that are award-friendly films, like The Fabelmans, like Women Talking, like Banshees, like Tar. They're just not hitting. I could even see, even though it's going to be a wider release film, I can see Babylon struggling a little bit at the box office and not coming up to expectations. Empire of Light, I think, will struggle with expectations. In its limited run so far, The Sun, I haven't heard too many figures on that one, but I figure that one is also, especially after a poor fall festival circuit on that one, that one is going to really struggle, unlike The Father, which ended up doing, especially during the pandemic and stuff, ended up doing kind of respectable business, but yeah. Anyhow, so I wanted to just say that, so just because The Fabelmans does look like it's not having its greatest day at the box office right now, everybody else is getting pulled under too, because we're just really struggling to see some of these films come back. And I know some people did have hopes that The Fabelmans was going to be the one to do it. And it could, just because it didn't open so strong right now doesn't mean that as it goes out to different markets and as more people are able to see it, it doesn't mean that people aren't going to show up. It doesn't mean that down the line it can't crack 30, 40, $50 million. The one exception I think so far seemingly has been Everything Everywhere All at Once, and really that's been the exception. Everything else has not really done it. So that's kind of just the reality nowadays. I figured The Fabelmans was probably, if not Banshees, was probably going to be the one to do it out of this bunch this year. So really it's like, okay, we got to wait till next year then, or until we get maybe something in the spring or early summer that has a chance to kind of take that storm and pick that flag back up and keep rolling. But at this rate, it's kind of tough to see who else can do it. All right. With that being said, let's move on to the Golden Globe stuff. For Best Picture Drama, my 5 films are still in the order of most likely to least likely. Fabelmans, Women Talking, Top Gun, Tar, and The Whale. So at this point, Elvis is still being considered drama, which it might just end up being, but part of me still says they will switch to comedy musical, but I can't confidently predict that anymore. She Said, I had in there for a little bit, but I took that one out in favor of Tar. And yeah, I mean, again, not to go completely against it, but the Globes sometimes do, especially, even though this is a press-related film and they're the Hollywood Foreign Press, I don't know if this is going to be their movie. I just don't know if this is going to be like The Post, which had a world, super well-known director behind it and 2 leading actors that are super uber famous and, have been nominated several times by their respective body there at the Globes. So, yeah. She Said doesn't tick all those boxes the way The Post did. Otherwise, The Woman King, I think, is close. That one, I would say, is probably in 6th or 7th. Avatar: The Way of Water, I would say, is not completely out yet. I haven't heard if the Globes are going to get an exclusive screening of that one yet. I would imagine if they do, it's going to be next week, because obviously the nominations come out on the, the 12th, if memory serves? Monday the 12th, that's right. So, obviously it opens later that week worldwide, so they'd have to have seen it before then. So, I haven't heard that yet, but I'm sure if that is going to happen, which I'm sure it will, we'll hear about it here pretty soon as far as when that screening would be. On the comedy musical side, I have Everything Everywhere All at Once, Banshees of Inisherin, Glass Onion, Babylon, and in 5th place, I had Weird Al, Weird the Al Yankovic story or whatever, but it doesn't sound like it's qualifying now. There was some question of its qualifiability, or whatever the word would be. Since it's not playing in theaters and it is, more streaming central in its distribution and stuff, I'm going Triangle of Sadness just as kind of... I mean, I don't want to say placeholder because we're getting close to the end here, but I just don't know what topples it. You have The Menu, which has done okay at the box office so far for kind of a counter-programming type film. And I don't know if that's going to even end up in the comedy musical category. That's one I can see switching at the last minute. Matilda, the musical, just from Netflix, just opened up in the UK and actually did pretty well at the box office there. But I don't know if that's their cup of tea. The Greatest Beer Run Ever, they did just do pretty well with Green Book here. That got 3 wins a few years ago, but that one doesn't really have any traction. Hustle has no traction. Cha-Cha Real Smooth I haven't heard a lot about. White Noise has not gotten traction. Ticket to Paradise I think has a lot better chance when we get to the acting categories here for comedy musical, but in the film category, even though that's been one that has generally done pretty well at the box office, even worldwide has done pretty well, I'm kind of like, oof, I don't know if that's their movie in this particular category. And then you got Bros. And Bros, had its moment, came and went, and I haven't really heard a lot of people talking about it since. And, yeah, I just don't feel confident enough to predict that one. So Triangle of Sadness kind of, I guess, by default in that fifth slot. In the directing category, I have Steven Spielberg, then the Daniels, Sarah Polley, Martin McDonagh, and I'm going with Gina Price Blythewood for The Woman King in 5th place. Don't forget, it was the last 2 years now, if memory serves. I'm going to triple check this while I'm thinking about it here. Let me see here. See if I'm close to the right number here. Okay, pretty close. So this would be the last 2 years now. Right. In the directing category, we had Chloe Zhao and Emerald Fennell and Regina King make it in for Best Director here 2 years ago. And last year, it was not only Jane Campion, but also Maggie Gyllenhaal who made it in for Director. So we've seen multiple women nominated in the last couple of years here at the Globes. So it's like, okay, Sarah Polley is a good bet right now to get in, to be the next female director nominated, not only at the Oscars, but, across the board. But if we're going to get a second one, or even a third one, where's it going to come from? And my vote is Gina Prince Blythewood, Gina Prince Blythewood for The Woman King. And I don't know, it feels like a Maggie Gyllenhaal type of nominee. It feels like one that's like, it feels right. It feels like it's a film that has a shot at landing in the Best Picture Drama category, as well as some other categories. Now, like some of the other contenders here, Gyllenhaal's film, The Lost Daughter, did not make it in for Best Picture, or Best Film at the Globes that year. And also, One Night in Miami did not make the list for Best Picture Drama that year at the Globes. So it would make sense that The Woman King possibly misses in picture drama. Women Talking, I think, feels a lot more secure in that category right now. But at the same time, don't totally discount Todd Field yet. Don't discount Damien Chazelle yet. Don't discount even James Cameron yet. Baz Luhrmann, some people have picked here. Aronofsky, we've named as well. And then even Maria Schrader, I would say, for She Said, I don't think is completely out of the picture yet for this race. So there's some possibilities there in director for a couple surprises here and there. Moving on to the acting races, actor drama, I've got Brendan Fraser out front for The Whale, then Hugh Jackman, Bill Nighy, Austin Butler, and I dropped, who did I have in here earlier? Timothée Chalamet, that's right, for Bones and All. He just got in at Indie Spirit. Jeremy Pope for The Inspection. I kind of looked at the list again. I'm like, okay, The Fabelmans I think is going to do well. Is it going to do well enough to get that young actor in, Gabriel LaBelle? I don't know. I don't think so. Tom Cruise, I'm still going with my theory with them being a little butthurt about his very public trashing of the Globes, physically by giving them back to the ceremony or throwing them in the trash, whatever he ended up doing. I think they're going to be butthurt. So I don't have him in. I might be dead wrong about that, and he might just get in anyways. But I think they're going to be butthurt. The ones that are left, that are from the old days, I think they're going to be butthurt, and they're not going to put him in. Will Smith, Emancipation seems to be gaining a little momentum here. It's going to open, I believe, or start streaming this week or next week. Off the top of my head, I think it's this week. And I don't believe we have reviews yet. Not that I saw, at least. I can triple check that to make sure I'm not wrong. I just saw he's doing some press for the film already because there was a couple articles I saw, the titles of at least. I didn't have time to read the articles or anything, but where Will Smith was kind of going out and saying, "Hey, people, just because of what happened last year, don't punish the rest of the crew that worked on the movie because of me." And to a certain extent, I have to slap back at him and say, sorry, pun intended, slap back at him. And say, you should have thought of that with the rest of the people on the movie King Richard when you did that on the Oscar stage in front of millions of people watching and the hundreds of people in the auditorium. You should have thought about that then. Anyway, so that being said, trying to think what else. There's one, the preview I've seen a couple times, a spoiler alert with Jim Parsons. I don't know. I feel like that one has just not gotten enough traction to make an impact yet in the race. So I'll name it in case it does happen, because there's always one or two surprises here at the Globes, but I'm not 100% saying it's a lock by any means. In the actress category, Cate Blanchett I have out front for Tar, then Michelle Williams for The Fabelmans, Viola Davis, Olivia Colman, and Danielle Deadwyler in there. And I feel like I'm pretty set on those five. Olivia Colman does kind of, if anything, she feels like the slightly weak link in there, just because her movie, again, off the fall festival circuit, did not hit nearly as well as they wanted it to. But I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, Naomi Ackie for I Want to Dance with Somebody, again, it's opening really late, so I haven't heard where when the screening's going to be. And again, there's a possibility that one ends up in the comedy musical category at this point. There's a chance that it ends up there, so we'll see. Otherwise, Ana de Armas for Blonde feels like she's lost quite a bit of steam in that race. Jennifer Lawrence for Causeway is a possibility, but don't forget the Globes generally have liked Lawrence a lot over the years, as far as giving her wins. Now, outside of her films that were already kind of in the race or in the hunt for some Oscar contention, none of her other performances, other than last year with Don't Look Up, have gotten nominations at the Globes. And even that was in a race that we all felt was kind of a little limited. So we'll see. We'll see if she can make it in for that one too. Yeah, I feel like it generally covers that one. For lead actor, comedy musical, Colin Farrell feels like a pretty safe bet here out front for Banshees. Then you have Daniel Craig for Glass Onion. I do have Adam Driver still in for White Noise, then George Clooney for Ticket to Paradise, and because Daniel Radcliffe is probably not going to be here, according to a few of the things, I'm looking at the list, and I'm like, I don't know who else to put in. I'm going Billy Eichner for Bros. Even though I don't think the movie is obviously going to do very well here, I could be wrong, and it could end up getting a slot in film comedy, but I just don't know who else to go with. Babylon, if that really does not hit with the Globe voters, and I don't think he makes it. Adam Sandler for Hustle feels like, I don't know, I haven't heard a lot of press about that one. A Man Called Otto is coming out right around Christmas time, so again, that one has to screen early, and I haven't heard anything about that screening early. And then it gets really tough after that. I'm looking at the list, I'm like, nobody I've really followed or seen get a lot of traction yet. I haven't made any changes in this category. That's lead actress, comedy musical, and that's Michelle Yeoh up front for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Then Margot Robbie for Babylon, Emma Thompson, Julia Roberts, and Leslie Manville. And I generally feel like that's going to be the five. I don't see anyone else making really any headwind here. Regina Hall might have gotten a little bit of buzz for Honk for Jesus Save Your Soul because of the Indie Spirit nomination. And she did get in for, what was it? I got to type in because I can't remember the name of the movie. But she did get Support the Girls. It was the Gotham nomination and Indie Spirit. Okay, both. Okay, I thought she only got one for that film, but yeah, she did get in for that. And some people thought, hey, there was a chance she would break in at the Globes. Didn't work out that year. So yeah. Otherwise, a couple of people have actually talked about The Lost City possibly breaking into a couple categories here because that was a kind of early film. It did well at the box office. So Sandra Bullock would be here, and then you have Channing Tatum in the lead category for actor, but I don't see either one of them making a lot of headwind there. All right, let's move on to the supporting categories. Supporting actor, I have Ke Huy Quan up front for Everything Everywhere All at Once, then Ben Whishaw, then Paul Dano, then Brendan Gleeson, and then Judd Hirsch in there. Don't dismiss Tom Hanks yet. I would say Barry Keoghan is still a possibility to kind of steal a nomination here. Brad Pitt for Babylon, possibly, if they do like the film. And I still say the one I would put a lot more stock at him getting in, say, at the SAGs than here at the Globes. But Jeremy Strong in Armageddon Time, I brought that one up last time. Boy, I can just picture that right now. I can just picture his name being called on the morning of SAG and all of us just being shocked. Well, except for me, because I'm predicting it. Not totally predicting it yet, but I'm like, wow, something tells me that's going to happen. I don't know what. I could be, of course, dead wrong. I don't see him popping up here at the Globes, but I can see that one, for whatever reason, striking at SAG, like we mentioned last time. In supporting actress, though, Jessie Buckley I have as the front runner right now for Women Talking. Claire Foy I have also in there, which is tricky. Don't forget, a lot of these, the multiple people from the same film in the same category type deal, the Globes has not done that as much. Three Billboards didn't get both Sam Rockwell and Woody Harrelson in there at the Globes. They both got in at SAG and BAFTA. It took later in the season for them to get in. So I'm really close to thinking, okay, one of those two could fall out, because I've already pulled Claire Foy out from SAG. Stephanie Sue I have getting in there for Everything Everywhere All at Once. But again, that's going to be tricky too, because both her and Jamie Lee are nominees at Indie Spirits. Obviously, Stephanie in the breakthrough category, but Jamie made the list for the supporting category, so it's like, oof. Is there going to be some struggle there? We'll see. But Carrie Condon I have in there as well for Banshees, and then Hong Chow for The Whale. So this one I'm like, okay, Jamie Lee's in the hunt. Carey Mulligan, 100% I believe is in the hunt. I wouldn't totally throw out Sadie Sink or Sally Field yet. Sink for The Whale and Sally Field for Spoiler Alert, in case that one does come through. And I feel like there's one other one that I'm missing here. And I cannot remember who it is, and I don't see their name. Who was it I was thinking of? Oh, it was somebody I was thinking of, and now I completely lost it. It's not somebody I have in at SAG or anything. I don't think it's anybody else from like Women Talking or from She Said, so I don't remember who it was. But oh well, it might come to me later at some useless hour in the middle of the night or something. But we'll see. Let's wrap up just with the screenplay category here. We'll get into the music categories and stuff probably next time when we get into final predictions and stuff. And again, I don't think I have any changes here. Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Women Talking, The Banshees of Inisherin, and Glass Onion are my 5 here. So that leaves out Tar and Babylon, both of which are kind of the next ones up, at least in the odds here on Gold Derby, which agree with me, which is fine. But She Said, I think, could possibly break in. The Whale could break in if that one goes over well with the Globes. Tar, I think Tar is the one that's going to break through, though. If any one of these miss... I mean, Glass Onion I have in 5th. That feels like one that could miss. But Knives Out, the first one, of course, it got a couple nominations at the Globes, but it missed that screenplay category. And then after that, then BAFTA, I believe WGA, and the Oscars finally started putting it in for screenplay. So the Globes, they might try to make up for that and put it in ahead of time there. Even if it, for whatever reason, starts falling off, which I don't think it will, because adapted screenplay at first looked like the more competitive... adapted is the less. I think I've been saying all along that adapted is the less competitive of the two categories this year in the screenplay. But yeah, generally, yeah, I think it won't have as hard a time if it was in the original screenplay category, like Knives Out was. Oh, that's tough. That's tough. That's a lot tougher. But since it's an adapted and safe in that category this year, I think, yeah, it's probably good. It's probably fine. All right. I think that'll do it for me. Like I said, it is kind of getting a little bit late here tonight, so we will, like I said, time is really sketchy this week, so unless we have something major break, I'm probably done until next week, and then we will get into final predictions for the Globes, who's in and who's out, and, we'll cover what happened at Gotham, and we'll see what else comes up. See what else is stewing that week for Oscar-related news.